I opened my eyes to the familiar ceiling of my old apartment, the one I'd left 2 years ago when Alexander convinced me to move into his penthouse. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sat up, disoriented, my hands trembling as I reached for my phone. The date on the screen made my breath catch. March 15, 2023. 2 years before my death. 2 years before Alexander Reed would frame me for embezzlement, before the media would tear me apart, before I'd stand on that rooftop and let the wind carry me into oblivion. I should have felt relief. Instead, rage burned through my veins like acid. Julian? My roommate's voice called from the kitchen. You okay? You've been in bed for 12 hours straight. Marcus. God, I'd forgotten about Marcus. My college friend who'd moved to Singapore right after I'd moved in with Alexander. In my previous life we'd lost touch completely. I'm fine, I called back, my voice steadier than I expected. I stood and caught my reflection in the mirror. 26 years old, dark hair slightly too long, eyes that still held softness instead of the hollow desperation that would come later. I looked innocent, trusting, perfect. My phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. Miss you. Dinner tonight? I have something important to discuss. I knew what that something was. In my original timeline, tonight was when Alexander first introduced me to his business partners, the beginning of the elaborate scheme that would destroy me. He'd presented me as his naive boyfriend, someone who'd sign documents without reading them, someone who'd take the fall when everything collapsed. I typed back, of course. Can't wait to see you. Red heart. The heart emoji tasted like poison on my tongue. Alexander's chosen restaurant was predictably expensive. All low lighting and hushed conversations where deals worth millions were made over wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I arrived exactly on time, wearing the soft blue sweater Alexander always said brought out my eyes. He stood when he saw me, that megawatt smile that had once made my heart race now making my stomach turn. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Alexander Reed was beautiful in the way poisonous things often are. Julian. He pulled me into an embrace, lips brushing my temple. You look perfect. You always say that, I murmured, letting myself melt into his arms the way I used to, the way he expected. He'd invited 3 others, Richard Chin, his CFO, Margaret Voss, head of legal, and David Park, a silent investor whose family owned half the commercial real estate in the city. I recognized them all. In my previous life I'd thought they were my friends too. Julian, Richard said warmly, shaking my hand. Alexander never stops talking about you. All good things, I hope? I smiled, playing the part of the smitten, slightly overwhelmed boyfriend. Throughout dinner, I laughed at their jokes, asked innocent questions about their business, and let Alexander's hand rest possessively on my thigh under the table. When Margaret pulled out documents, just some routine paperwork, Julian, since you and Alexander are getting serious, I hesitated just long enough to seem uncertain but trusting. What is it? I asked, looking at Alexander with wide eyes. Just making you an official consultant for Reed Media, Alexander said smoothly. It comes with a nice salary and it'll help with tax purposes. Nothing complicated. In my previous timeline, I'd signed without question. These documents would later be used to prove I had access to company finances, access I'd supposedly abused to embezzle millions. The money had actually gone to offshore accounts Alexander controlled, but by the time anyone investigated, I'd be the only name on the paperwork. I don't know, I said softly. I don't want to be a burden on your company. You could never be a burden, Alexander said, squeezing my hand. I want to take care of you. Let me do this. I let them convince me. I signed my name with a slight tremor in my hand that wasn't entirely faked. Rage made me shake, but they interpreted it as nervousness. Perfect. The coffee shop where I worked part-time hadn't changed. Same chip tables, same hissing espresso machine, same regulars who came in at exactly the same time every day. In my previous life, I'd quit this job a month from now, when Alexander convinced me I didn't need to work. This time I was keeping it. 1 Americano, extra shot, I called out, setting the cup on the counter. A hand reached for it and I looked up into eyes the color of warm honey. The man was around my age, maybe a year or two older, with dark hair that fell messily across his forehead and an expression of perpetual curiosity. He wore a worn leather jacket over a simple black shirt, and there was ink staining his fingers. Thanks, he said, then paused. You're Julian, right? Julian Moore? My defenses slammed up immediately. Do I know you? No, Elaine. I'm a journalist with the Independent Press. He pulled out a business card. I'm investigating corporate corruption in media companies. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about Read Media. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. I don't work for Read Media. I just know the CEO. I know. You're Alexander Reed's partner. Noah's gaze was steady, not accusatory but searching. Look, I'm not trying to cause problems in your relationship, but there are some serious financial irregularities at Read Media, and I think Alexander might be setting someone up to take the fall. I wanted to warn you. In my previous life, Noah Lane had published his exposé 3 weeks after my death. Too late to save me, but early enough to clear my name and reveal Alexander's crimes. Alexander had served 5 years in prison while I'd become a cautionary tale, the naive lover destroyed by blind trust. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully, but Alexander would never do something like that. Maybe you should focus on actual criminals instead of trying to destroy innocent people's lives. I saw the flash of frustration in Noah's eyes, followed by something that looked like genuine worry. Just, be careful, okay? If you ever need help or if you notice anything strange, call me. He pushed the business card across the counter. Please. I pocketed it without committing. Your Americano's getting cold. He left, but I felt his gaze linger on me through the window. 3 weeks into my second chance at life, and the performance was exhausting. I played the devoted boyfriend perfectly, attending Alexander's business dinners, laughing at his jokes, warming his bed with manufactured passion that made me want to scrub my skin raw afterward. But I was also watching, learning, documenting. Every time Alexander left his phone unattended, I copied information. Every business meeting he mentioned casually, I noted down. I was building my own case, my own evidence. This time I wouldn't be the victim. You seem distracted, Alexander said one evening as we lay in his bed. His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. Is everything okay? Just tired, I murmured, turning to press a kiss to his chest. Work was busy. You should quit that coffee shop. His voice held an edge. It's beneath you. I can take care of all your expenses. I like working, I said. It makes me feel independent. His fingers tightened fractionally on my shoulder. I don't like the idea of my boyfriend serving coffee to strangers. What if someone disrespects you? What if I meet someone else? I finished, keeping my tone light and teasing. Alexander, I love you. A job isn't going to change that. But I felt the shift in him, the first flicker of displeasure that would eventually grow into controlling rage. In my previous life, I'd mistaken his possessiveness for love. Now I saw it for what it was, ownership. Just think about it, he said finally, kissing my forehead. I only want what's best for you. I hummed non-committally and closed my eyes, counting down the seconds until I could leave. I didn't expect to see Noah Lane again so soon. But fate, or perhaps something more deliberate, put him directly in my path 2 days later. I was leaving Alexander's office building after dropping off lunch. The dutiful boyfriend act required constant maintenance, when someone collided with me, sending papers scattering across the sidewalk. Shit, I'm sorry, Noah's voice cut off when he recognized me. Julian? What are you doing here? I demanded, dropping to help gather his papers before I could stop myself. My eyes caught on printed spreadsheets, highlighted sections, names I recognized. Evidence. He was building a case against Alexander. Research, Noah said simply, not bothering to lie. His hand covered one particularly damning document before I could read too much. You? Visiting my boyfriend. I handed him his papers, our fingers brushing. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me, not desire exactly but recognition. Like calling to like, you should be more careful. Alexander has people everywhere. Is that a threat? It's a warning. I stood, brushing off my jeans. From someone who knows how he operates. Noah studied me with those honey-colored eyes, and I had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing past my carefully constructed mask. You're different than I expected. What did you expect? Someone more fragile. The way Alexander talks about you, I thought you'd be. He stopped himself. You've heard him talk about me? Something cold settled in my chest. Noah hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. There's a bar 3 blocks from here. McGill's. Can I buy you a drink? No agenda, no questions about Alexander. Just a conversation between 2 people who both seemed to be drowning in something. I should have said no. Every strategic bone in my body screamed that getting close to Noah Lane was dangerous. To my plans, to my revenge, to the careful walls I'd built around my heart. But I was so tired. Tired of pretending, tired of letting Alexander touch me, tired of being alone with my rage. 1 drink, I heard myself say. McGill's was exactly the kind of place Alexander would never be caught dead in. Dim, slightly dingy, with scarred wooden tables and a jukebox playing classic rock. Noah ordered us both whiskey without asking, and I didn't correct him. Why are you really investigating Reed Media? I asked once we'd settled into a corner booth. Because powerful people shouldn't get away with destroying lives just because they can, Noah said simply. I became a journalist because I wanted to tell stories that mattered. Holding people accountable matters. Even if it destroys them? Especially then. He took a sip of his drink. But I try not to hurt innocent people in the process. That's why I approached you that day. I didn't want you getting caught in the blast radius. I laughed, a bitter sound. What makes you think I'm innocent? Are you? The question hung between us. I could lie. Should lie. But something about Noah's steady gaze, his apparent sincerity, made me reckless. What if I told you I already know exactly what Alexander's doing? The whiskey burned down my throat. What if I told you I'm not the naive boyfriend everyone thinks I am? Noah leaned forward, interested. Then I'd say you're either the best actor I've ever met or something else is going on. Which is it? Both, I admitted. I'm playing a role. But my reasons are my own. And those reasons are? I met his eyes. Revenge. To his credit, Noah didn't recoil. If anything, he looked intrigued. What did Alexander do to you? In this timeline? Nothing yet. The words slipped out before I could stop them, whiskey loosening my tongue more than I'd intended. This timeline? Noah's brow furrowed. Julian, what? Forget I said that. I stood abruptly. This was a mistake. I should go. His hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. Wait. Please. When I hesitated, he continued, I don't know what's happening with you and I won't pretend to understand. But I recognize pain when I see it. And rage. I've seen it in the mirror often enough. Why would you have rage? Because I've been where you are, Noah said quietly. Different circumstances but the same feeling of helplessness. Of watching someone powerful hurt people you care about and being unable to stop it. His grip on my wrist loosened but didn't release. You don't have to tell me your secrets. But you don't have to carry them alone either. Something cracked in my chest. A small fissure in the ice I'd wrapped around my heart. I sat back down. My story is complicated, I said finally. I've got time. I didn't tell Noah everything, not about my death, not about traveling back in time. Some truths were too impossible to share. But I told him about Alexander's plan, about the embezzlement scheme, about how I knew I was being set up to take the fall. How do you know all this? Noah asked, his journalist instincts clearly screaming at the holes in my story. Does it matter? I countered. If I'm right, if I can give you proof, does it matter how I know? Noah studied me for a long moment. Are you in danger? Right now, I mean. Not yet. The timeline. I caught myself. The plan doesn't fully activate for another few months. I have time. To do what? Julian, if you know about a crime, you should go to the police or... The police won't help, I interrupted. Alexander has connections everywhere. By the time anyone investigates, I'll already be blamed. No, the only way to survive this is to beat him at his own game. And how do you plan to do that? I met his eyes. By becoming exactly what he thinks I am, his perfect, trusting victim, while I gather evidence to destroy him. That's dangerous. I know. And you're doing this alone. I said softly. Until now. Something shifted in Noah's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. What do you need from me? Your investigation. Your evidence. And I hesitated, surprised by what I was about to say. Your friendship. I think I'm going to need a friend before this is over. Noah's hand found mine across the table, his calloused fingers warm against my skin. You've got it. Working with Noah was dangerous in ways I hadn't anticipated. We met in secret coffee shops across town, his cramped apartment full of files and whiteboards covered in connections, late-night phone calls where his voice grounded me when the rage threatened to consume everything else. Tell me about your life, Noah said one evening as we pored over financial documents in his apartment. Before all this, who were you when you weren't planning revenge? I looked up from the spreadsheet I'd been studying. Why does that matter? Because I don't want you to lose yourself in this, Noah said. Revenge is, it's like acid. It destroys everything it touches, including the person seeking it. I've seen it happen. Is that what happened to you? I asked. This rage you mentioned? Noah was quiet for a moment. My sister, he said finally. She worked for a pharmaceutical company. When she discovered they were covering up dangerous side effects, she tried to blow the whistle. They destroyed her, got her fired, blacklisted, spread rumors about mental instability. She killed herself 2 years ago. My chest tightened. Noah, I became a journalist to expose people like them, he continued. And for a long time all I felt was rage. I wanted to burn down every corrupt institution, destroy every person who'd hurt her. But that anger was killing me. My editor made me see a therapist, and slowly I learned to channel it into something productive. Investigation. Truth. Justice that actually helps people instead of just feeding my need for vengeance. You think I should let Alexander go? I said flatly. No. Noah's hand covered mine. I think he should face justice. But I don't want you to destroy yourself in the process. You deserve more than that. His touch sent warmth through me, unexpected and unwelcome. I pulled my hand away. I can't think about what I deserve. Not until this is finished. Then let me think about it for you, Noah said softly. It happened gradually, then all at once. The way I started looking forward to seeing Noah, the way his smile made something in my chest loosen, the way his presence made the apartment feel less like a strategic meeting point and more like a haven. I was falling for him and it terrified me. Tell me something true, Noah said one night. We'd finished reviewing documents hours ago, but neither of us had moved to leave. We sat on his worn couch, whiskey glasses in hand, the city lights stretching below his window. What do you mean? Something real. Not about Alexander, not about revenge. Something about Julian Moore that has nothing to do with any of this. I thought for a moment. I wanted to be a writer, I admitted. Before I met Alexander, before everything got complicated. I used to write short stories, nothing published, just stories about people finding hope in dark places. Do you still write? No. Alexander said it was a waste of time, that I should focus on more practical things. Eventually I just stopped. Noah's jaw tightened. He took that from you. He took everything from me. The admission hung in the air between us. Or he will. Or he did. Time is confusing. Julian. I'm from the future, I blurted out. The whiskey, the late hour, Noah's presence. All of it combined to strip away my filters. I lived through this before. Alexander framed me, I went to prison, lost everything, and eventually killed myself. When I woke up, I was back here 2 years before my death. That's how I know what he's planning. I expected disbelief. Mockery. Instead, Noah just studied me with those honey-colored eyes. That explains a lot, actually. You believe me? I believe something happened to you that gave you knowledge you shouldn't have, Noah said carefully. Whether it's time travel or precognition or just incredibly accurate intuition doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're here now and you're trying to change things. Relief flooded through me so intensely I felt dizzy. Why aren't you running? Because I've seen too much weird shit in my investigations to dismiss anything outright, Noah said with a slight smile. And because. He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek with devastating gentleness. Because I care about you, Julian. Whatever timeline you're from, whatever you've been through, I care about you. You shouldn't, I whispered. I'm broken. Full of rage and hatred and... Human, Noah interrupted. You're human. Hurt and angry and traumatized, but human. And you deserve to be cared for. Before I could overthink it, before I could retreat behind my walls, I leaned forward and kissed him. Noah kissed like he did everything else, with complete presence and attention. His lips were soft against mine, one hand cradling my face while the other found my waist, pulling me closer. I melted into him, into this moment of genuine connection that I hadn't realized I'd been desperately craving. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Noah rested his forehead against mine. We should stop. Why? My hands were fisted in his shirt, unwilling to let go. Because you're vulnerable right now, Noah said. And I don't want you to regret this tomorrow. I don't want you to think I'm taking advantage of. I kissed him again, harder this time, pouring months of loneliness and pain and desperate need into it. I'm not some innocent victim who doesn't know my own mind, I said against his lips. I want this. I want you. Please, Noah. Let me have something good in all this darkness. His resolve crumbled. Noah kissed me again, deeper this time, and we tumbled back against the couch cushions. His hands were everywhere, gentle but insistent, mapping my body like he was trying to memorize every curve and angle. When he pulled back to look at me, his pupils were blown wide, lips kiss-swollen. Are you sure? He asked, and I loved him a little for still checking, for still caring about my consent even now. Yes, I breathed. God, yes. What happened next was achingly tender. Noah taking his time despite my impatience, kissing every inch of exposed skin as he undressed me, whispering praise against my throat that made me shudder. When he finally pressed into me, it hurt in the best way and I gasped against his shoulder. "Okay," he murmured, stilling immediately. "More than okay," I managed. "Please Noah. Move." He did, setting a slow, deep rhythm that built pleasure through me in waves. His hands never stopped moving, stroking my skin, threading through my hair, holding me like I was something precious. When he wrapped his hand around my arousal, I broke apart with a cry, pleasure wiping away every thought except Noah, Noah, Noah. He followed moments later, my name a prayer on his lips, and we collapsed together in a tangle of sweaty limbs and racing hearts. "Stay," Noah said after we'd caught our breath. "Stay the night. Let me hold you." I should have said no. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I nodded and let him pull me against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. For the first time in 2 lifetimes I felt safe. Morning came too quickly, sunlight streaming through Noah's curtains to wake me. His arm was heavy across my waist, his breath warm against the back of my neck. I lay still, afraid to move, afraid to break this fragile peace. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Alexander's name flashed across the screen. "Where are you? You didn't come home last night." Reality crashed back in. I was still with Alexander in this timeline. Still playing the devoted boyfriend. Still trapped in the performance that would ensure my revenge. "You have to go," Noah said quietly behind me. He was awake, had probably been awake for a while. "I'm sorry," I started, but he pressed a kiss to my shoulder. "Don't apologize." I knew what this was. But his voice held disappointment he couldn't quite hide. I turned to face him. "It's not like that. Last night meant something to me." "You mean something to me? But you're still with him." "I have to be," I said desperately. "Just a little longer. Until I have enough evidence, until I can finish this." "And then what?" Noah asked. "You destroy him and we ride off into the sunset?" "Julian, revenge isn't going to heal what's broken in you." "I know that." My voice cracked. "But I can't move forward until I know he can't hurt anyone else. Don't you see? If I walk away now, he'll just find another victim. Another me. I have to stop him." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay. But I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't lose yourself in this. Promise me that when it's done, when Alexander faces justice, you'll let yourself heal. Let yourself live." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. "Let yourself be happy." "I promise," I whispered, and I meant it. We stayed like that for a few more precious minutes before I finally forced myself to leave. As I dressed, Noah watched from the bed, sheets pulled around his waist. "Julian?" he called as I reached the door. "For what it's worth, I'm falling in love with you." My hand froze on the doorknob. I couldn't say it back. Not yet, not while I was still Alexander's in the eyes of the world. But I turned and met his gaze. "Ask me again," I said. "When this is over. Ask me again and I'll give you a real answer." The next 2 months were a delicate balance of deception and truth. By day I was Alexander's perfect boyfriend. Attending galas, smiling for cameras, playing the role that would ultimately be my salvation. By night, I met with Noah, comparing evidence, building our case, and occasionally losing ourselves in each other's arms. "You're spending a lot of time at the gym," Alexander commented one evening, his tone deceptively casual. Or, with Marcus. "I'm starting to feel neglected." Warning bells rang in my mind. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pressing close. "Are you jealous?" I teased. "Alexander Reed, jealous of my gym membership?" "Of course not," he said, but his hands on my waist were tighter than necessary. "I just miss you." "Is that so wrong?" "I miss you too," I lied smoothly. "How about this weekend, just the two of us? We could go to that cabin upstate you're always talking about." His expression softened. "I'd like that." That night I warned Noah. "He's getting suspicious. We need to be more careful." "Or we need to move faster," Noah countered. We were in his apartment, spread of evidence covering every surface. "Julian, we have enough. We could go public tomorrow and—" "No." I cut him off. "Not yet. There's still a piece missing, the offshore accounts. Without proof of where the money went, it's just circumstantial. Alexander's lawyers would tear it apart. Then how do we get proof of the offshore accounts?" "The cabin," I said slowly, pieces clicking together. "He keeps a laptop there, separate from everything else. It's not networked, completely offline. If the account information exists anywhere physical, It's there. This sounds like a trap. Maybe. But it's also an opportunity. I looked at Noah. Come with me. Stay nearby. If something goes wrong, I'll be there, Noah promised. I'll always be there. The cabin was exactly as I remembered, isolated, beautiful, the perfect place for someone to disappear without questions. Alexander drove us up Friday evening, his hand possessive on my thigh the entire ride. Just us, he said as we pulled into the driveway. No work, no distractions. I want to focus on you this weekend. Unease prickled down my spine, but I smiled. That sounds perfect. Noah was staying at a motel 5 miles down the road, close enough to reach quickly but far enough to avoid suspicion. I told him I'd check in every few hours and if I missed a check-in to call the police. That night, Alexander was different. More intense, more demanding. As we lay together afterward, his fingers traced my spine almost absently. Do you love me, Julian? He asked suddenly. My heart stuttered, but I kept my voice steady. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? Because sometimes I think you're hiding something from me, Alexander said. Like you're playing a role instead of being genuine. The irony of him accusing me of deception was almost funny. I turned to face him, making sure he saw only devotion in my eyes. I'm not hiding anything. I love you. I'm here, aren't I? He studied me for a moment longer, then seemed to accept it. Good. Because I'd hate to lose you, Julian. I'd do anything to keep you. The threat in his words was unmistakable. I waited until he fell asleep before slipping out of bed. The laptop was in his study, just where I remembered. My hands shook as I opened it, typing in the password I'd seen him use countless times. The files were all there, offshore accounts, money transfers, everything we needed. I plugged in the USB drive Noah had given me and started copying. What are you doing? I spun around to find Alexander in the doorway, his expression cold and dangerous. I asked you a question, Julian. What are you doing with my laptop? My mind raced through possible excuses, possible lies. But looking at Alexander's face, at the man who had destroyed me in another timeline, I felt something shift. I was done hiding. Done pretending. Gathering evidence, I said calmly, surprising myself with my own steadiness. Evidence of your embezzlement scheme. Evidence of how you plan to frame me. Evidence that will send you to prison. Alexander's laugh was sharp and humorless. You think you're clever? You think you've figured something out? I know exactly what you're doing, I continued. The fake consultant position, the documents you had me sign, the offshore accounts. You were going to frame me for stealing millions from Reed Media. But you got sloppy, Alexander. You left trails. And who's going to believe you? He stepped into the room and I forced myself not to back away. A barista with no business experience accusing one of the most powerful men in media? You'll be laughed out of court. Maybe. Or maybe Noah Lane's exposé will be enough to start a real investigation. I held up the USB drive. He's been building a case for months. This is just the final piece. Alexander's face contorted with rage. Noah Lane? The journalist? You've been, understanding dawned. You've been feeding him information. You've been working against me. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. From a man who would destroy me without a second thought. He moved fast, grabbing my wrist with bruising force. You ungrateful little. Do you have any idea what I could have given you? What I was willing to do for you? Frame me for your crimes? I jerked my wrist free. Ruin my life? That's not love, Alexander. That's ownership. And I'm not your property. I'll destroy you, he said, voice low and vicious. I'll make sure you never work again, never? You already did, I interrupted. In another life you already destroyed me. You framed me, I went to prison, lost everything and killed myself. But I got a second chance and this time I'm not your victim. Alexander stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe this whole thing was insane. But I'd never felt more certain, more clear-headed, more myself than I did in this moment. You're insane, he breathed. Maybe, I agreed. But I'm also right. And you're finished. I ran. I'd parked my car deliberately at the edge of the property, keys already in my pocket. I sprinted through the darkness, Alexander's shouts following me, and threw myself behind the wheel. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life just as Alexander reached the car, pounding on the window. Julian, you can't do this. Oh. But I was already moving, tires spitting gravel as I peeled away from the cabin. In my rearview mirror, I saw Alexander standing in the driveway, illuminated by my taillights, and felt a fierce satisfaction burn through me. I drove straight to Noah's motel, barely managing to knock before he yanked the door open, eyes wide with concern. Julian. You're early. I was about to. He stopped, taking in my disheveled appearance, my shaking hands. What happened? He caught me, I said, and then I was in his arms, finally letting myself break. He caught me copying the files, but I got them. Noah, I got everything. You're okay? He didn't hurt you? Noah's hands were everywhere, checking for injuries, for harm. I'm okay. I pulled back to look at him. I told him. About the evidence, about you, about everything. He knows we're coming for him. Then we need to move fast. Noah was already pulling out his phone. I'll call my editor, we'll publish everything tomorrow. With this evidence, the police will have to investigate and… Noah. I caught his hand. Thank you. For believing me. For helping me. For… My voice cracked. For making me remember that I'm more than just my anger. He pulled me close again, pressing his lips to my forehead. You always were, Julian. You just needed to remember. We spent the rest of the night preparing, organizing evidence, writing Noah's article, making sure every piece was airtight. By dawn we were ready. Last chance to back out, Noah said as his finger hovered over the send button. Once this goes live, there's no taking it back. Send it, I said without hesitation. End this. Noah pressed send and the article went live. Reed Media CEO's elaborate embezzlement scheme. How Alexander Reed planned to frame his partner for his crimes. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, every major news outlet was covering the story. Alexander's carefully constructed image crumbled as evidence piled up. The offshore accounts, the falsified documents, witness statements from former employees Noah had interviewed. By noon, federal investigators had raided Reed Media headquarters. By evening, Alexander was in custody, charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. I watched it all from Noah's apartment, his hand steady in mine, as the man who had destroyed my life in one timeline finally faced justice in this one. How do you feel? Noah asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired. That's normal, Noah said. Revenge doesn't feel as good as you think it will. But justice is different. Justice means he can't hurt anyone else. My phone had been ringing nonstop. Reporters, former friends, people from my past I hadn't spoken to in years. I'd ignore most of them, but one call made me pause. Marcus, my old roommate. Julian? Holy shit, are you okay? I just saw the news about Alexander. I'm fine, I said and realized it was almost true. I'm better than I've been in a long time. Where are you? Do you need somewhere to stay? The media's probably going to be all over you. I'm with a friend, I said, glancing at Noah, who smiled softly. But thank you, Marcus. Really? After I hung up, Noah pulled me closer on the couch. What happens now? Now? I took a deep breath. Now I figure out who Julian Moore is when he's not consumed by revenge. I start therapy probably. Go back to school maybe. Start writing again. I turned to look at him. Build a life that's actually mine. That sounds good, Noah said. And, is there room in that life for a journalist with terrible hours and an apartment full of case files? I kissed him softly. Ask me. What? You said you'd ask me again when this was over, I reminded him. So ask me. Understanding dawned in Noah's honey-colored eyes. He shifted to face me fully, taking both my hands in his. Julian Moore, I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm already there. You're brilliant and brave and so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. And I want to be part of your healing, your future, your life, if you'll have me. So, do you love me? My eyes stung with tears, good tears, healing tears. Yes, I said, my voice breaking on the word. God, yes, Noah. I love you. You showed me I could be more than my trauma, more than my anger. You gave me something to live for beyond revenge. Noah's kiss was soft and reverent, tasting of tears and new beginnings. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Move in with me, he said. This place is a disaster and probably too small for two people, but… Yes, I interrupted, laughing through my tears. Yes to all of it. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, therapy sessions, and tentative steps toward building a real life. Alexander pled guilty to avoid a longer trial, 15 years in federal prison, with restitution to the company and the investors he'd defrauded. I attended the sentencing, Noah beside me, his hand warm and steady in mine. Do you have anything to say to the defendant? The judge asked me. I looked at Alexander, at the man who had once been everything to me, who had destroyed me in another timeline and tried to destroy me in this one. He looked smaller now, diminished without his power and influence. No, I said clearly. I have nothing to say to him. He's already taken enough of my time. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Noah ran interference, getting me to the car with practiced efficiency. You okay? He asked once we were safely away. I'm good, I said and meant it. It's done. It's finally done. That evening we celebrated in the small but cozy apartment that was now officially ours. Take-out Chinese food, cheap wine, and the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. I started writing again, I said suddenly. Not just journaling for therapy. Actual stories. Noah's face lit up. Yeah. What kind of stories? About second chances, I said. About people who find hope even in the darkest places. I smiled. About falling in love with someone who sees past all your broken pieces. That sounds like a story I'd want to read, Noah said softly. He pulled me onto his lap, hands settling on my waist. Can I take you to bed, Julian? Not for revenge or performance or anything except the fact that I love you and want to show you. Heat bloomed in my chest, spreading through my whole body. Please. Noah carried me to our bedroom, actually carried me, which made me laugh, against his neck, and laid me down on our bed with careful reverence. This time there was no urgency, no desperation. Just Noah's hands learning my body, his lips following the path his fingers traced. You're beautiful, he murmured against my collarbone. I want to memorize every inch of you. He undressed me slowly, pressing kisses to each new expanse of exposed skin. When I was finally bare before him, he sat back to look at me, and the love in his eyes made my breath catch. Noah, I whispered. I need you. You have me, he promised. Always. He undressed himself, and then he was covering my body with his skin against skin, heartbeat against heartbeat. When he kissed me, it was deep and searching, his tongue sliding against mine in a rhythm that made me arch up into him. Tell me what you want, Noah said, his hand wrapping around my growing arousal. Tell me how to make you feel good. You, I gasped. Just you. All of you. Noah reached for the nightstand, grabbing supplies, and then his slick fingers were pressing into me, stretching me carefully while his mouth worked magic on my neck. By the time he finally positioned himself at my entrance, I was trembling with need. Look at me, Noah commanded softly, and I opened eyes I hadn't realized I'd closed. I want to see you. Want you to see me. This is us, Julian. No performance, no pretending. Just us. He pushed in slowly, so slowly, giving me time to adjust to the stretch and burn. When he was fully seated inside me, we both groaned. Okay? He asked, voice strained with the effort of holding still. Perfect, I breathed. Move, Noah. Please. He did, setting a slow, deep rhythm that built pleasure through me in waves. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining, pinning my hand to the pillow beside my head. The intimacy of it, the eye contact, the joined hands, the deliberate pace, was almost overwhelming. I love you, Noah said, punctuating each word with a thrust. I love you so much. Show me, I managed. Show me how much. Noah's control snapped. He drove into me harder, faster, hitting that spot inside me that made stars burst behind my eyes. His free hand wrapped around my arousal, stroking in time with his thrusts, and I was coming apart, pleasure crashing through me so intensely I saw white. Noah, I'm... Let go, he urged. I've got you. I shattered, crying out his name as I came, my release spilling hot between us. Noah followed moments later, burying himself deep as he filled me, my name a prayer on his lips. We collapsed together, sweaty and sated and completely entwined. Noah pressed lazy kisses to my shoulder, my neck, my jaw. I love you, I said into the peaceful aftermath. Thank you for giving me a reason to heal instead of just revenge. Thank you for letting me in, Noah replied. For trusting me with your broken pieces. They're not so broken anymore, I said softly. You helped me put them back together. 6 months later, I stood in a small bookstore in Brooklyn, surrounded by friends and supporters, holding a copy of my first published short story collection. The title, emblazoned across the cover in silver lettering, read, Second Falls. It's about second chances, I explained to the gathered crowd. About people who fall, whether through betrayal, loss, or their own mistakes, and find the strength to rise again. Sometimes we need to fall twice to learn how to fly. Noah stood in the back, his proud smile visible even from across the room. After the reading, as people milled around getting their books signed, he approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "To the author," he said, handing me a glass, "who proved that trauma doesn't have to define you." "To the journalist," I countered, "who showed me that some people are worth trusting." We clinked glasses, and I saw our future reflected in his honey-colored eyes, messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. That night, back in our apartment, Noah pulled me into his arms. "I have something to ask you. If it's about trying that new Thai place, the answer is yes," I teased. "Not exactly." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. "Julian Moore," Noah said, opening the box to reveal 2 simple silver bands. "I know we haven't been together that long by traditional standards, but I also know that what we have is real. You've seen me at my worst, obsessed with work, buried in investigations, sometimes forgetting to eat for days. And I've seen you fight your way back from trauma that would have destroyed most people. We've built something solid together, something that can weather anything. So I'm asking, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling so wide my cheeks hurt. "Yes," I said. "God, yes, Noah. Yes to everything, to you, to us, to building a life together." He slipped the ring onto my finger and I pulled him into a kiss that quickly turned heated. We tumbled onto the couch, laughing and crying and kissing, and when we made love that night, it was celebration and promise and hope all woven together. 1 year after Alexander's sentencing, I returned to the coffee shop where I'd first met Noah in this timeline. The owner, Mrs. Chen, greeted me with a warm hug. "Julian, it's been too long. Are you here to visit or?" "Actually," I said, "I was hoping my old position might be available. Part-time, just a few shifts a week. I miss the routine, the people." "Of course." Mrs. Chen beamed. "You're hired. When can you start?" "Tomorrow?" And so I found myself back behind the counter, steam rising from the espresso machine, the familiar rhythm of customer orders grounding me. I'd published my book, started therapy, moved in with Noah. Hell, I was planning a wedding. But this place, this ordinary coffee shop, represented something important, reclaiming the parts of my life that Alexander had tried to take from me. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see Noah entering, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. "One Americano, extra shot?" I called out with a grin. "That's the one," he said, approaching the counter. "Although the service here is much better than I remember. The barista's significantly more attractive." "Flatterer," I said, but I was blushing. "What are you working on?" "Piece about corporate reform," Noah said. "Boring policy stuff but important. Oh, and I got an email from Alexander's lawyers." My hands stilled on the espresso machine. "What did they want?" "He's asking for a meeting. Says he wants to apologize." I considered this for a moment, then shook my head. "No. I meant what I said at the sentencing. He's taken enough of my time. I'm done letting him occupy space in my life." "I think that's the right call," Noah said. "Although..." He hesitated. "Would it help? For closure?" "I don't need closure from him," I said, pouring his Americano. "I found my closure elsewhere." I met his eyes. In rebuilding. In healing. In falling in love with someone who actually sees me. Noah's expression softened. "Have I mentioned today that I'm marrying the strongest person I know?" "You might have mentioned it once or twice," I teased, sliding his coffee across the counter. "Same time tomorrow?" "Wouldn't miss it." As he left, I watched him go, then turned back to the next customer with a genuine smile. This was my life now, simple, imperfect, and entirely mine. No revenge, no performance, no darkness. Just healing. Just hope. Just love. The ceremony was small. Just close friends and family in a garden ceremony that somehow felt both intimate and grand. Marcus was my best man, tears streaming down his face during the vows. Noah's sister would have been his best woman, but we honored her memory with a moment of silence and a dedication in the program. "Julian Moore," Noah said, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his eyes, "you taught me that healing is possible even from the deepest wounds. You showed me that second chances are real, and that love can bloom even in the darkest soil. I promise to spend every day worthy of the trust you've placed in me. I promise to remind you, whenever you forget, that you are brilliant and brave and so deeply loved. I promise to be your partner in all things, in the mundane and the magical, in the struggles and the triumphs. I promise to love you, Julian, through every fall and every flight." My own vows were simpler but no less true. "Noah Lane, you saved my life. Not by solving my problems or fighting my battles, but by showing me I was worth saving. You gave me back myself. You showed me that trust isn't weakness, that vulnerability is courage, that love is the opposite of control. I promise to write our story together, not just my story or your story but ours. I promise to be honest with you, to lean on you, to let you lean on me. I promise to choose love every day, even when revenge or anger or fear seem easier. I promise to choose you, Noah, today and every day after. When we kissed as husbands, the gathered crowd erupted in applause, but I barely heard them. All I knew was Noah's lips on mine, his arms around me, and the absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. At the reception, as we danced our first dance as a married couple, Noah pulled me close. Happy? He murmured against my ear. I thought about everything, the pain I'd endured, the revenge I'd sought, the healing I'd found. I thought about Alexander rotting in prison while I danced with the love of my life. I thought about second chances and new beginnings and the story I was still writing. Yes, I said simply. I'm happy. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly was.